Welcome back. Now let's talk about housing and shelter. Housing is a fundamental need for every human being, irrespective of your financial standing. Despite the importance of housing to the social economic development of man and the nation, housing challenges have remained endemic in all parts of the world. In Nigeria in the year 2002, housing deficit in the country was put at about 8 million units. However, latest statistics indicate that Nigeria requires a whopping 700,000 housing units annually for the next 5 years. How can this be achieved? And why are we at this level? We have in the studio the chairman Forum of Advocates for Social Housing, Ezekiel Nya-Etok, is an architect also.
Yes,
Thank you so much for being with us
so
this
much
morning.
for having me. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we need 700,000 housing units in the next 15 years.
In actual fact, we're told it's 17 million homes
Yes,
that we're missing. 17 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you see, the 17 million, interestingly, has been 17 million for the past 6 years. And
have we scratched the
have,
surface?
I think the present Minister of Housing, Land Housing and Urban Development is trying to put a more current statistics in place, because over the number of years, a lot of houses are being built by individuals. The housing stock deficit is an aggregate of all, including the houses you build, you need, the local government, the state government, the federal government, and on a daily basis, people are building. So definitely 17 million cannot be static. And also our population is also rising. So is there a differential between the rising population, which should take the deficit higher, and the injection that we have put in place, which should bring the deficit lower? So I think the present minister has set up a committee, and that was, they've even sent in a preliminary report, which, I mean, she's been talking on. I think very soon Nigerians will have a clearer picture, but be that as it may, whatever the statistics are, we all know that there's a housing problem.
How are we gathering the statistics in terms of the number of properties that we already have built over the last 5 years or 6 years?
The method of getting those things done, which might not interest Nigerians so much, but when you look at certain statutory bodies, you have the Federal Housing Authority that's doing some work. We have the Federal Mortgage Bank that's funding. You have MBank, that's the Mortgage Bankers Association of Nigeria, the different mortgage banks that are working. You have the housing corporations that are overseeing what's going on in every state. We have REDAN, Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria, where their members are building all over. When you network the figures from all of them, and every state has an approval process, though I will agree that a lot of houses are being built without approvals, understandably, because of maybe the location in your village. In my village, I don't need approval to build my house. But there should be a way at the local government level of being able to gather the statistics. These things, the minister is trying to navigate all the minds and put in place systems and structures that should have been there long before today. But she's trying to put them together and be able to give us certain statistics, and we always need statistics to work with, because the present statistics that we have is scary. I'll tell you just as briefly as possible. When you take 17 million deficit and you now take a delivery cost of, say, 3 million, okay, which to start with is unrealistic for a family house, you would need close to 50 trillion to get that deficit, evacuated. And if you know Nigeria has just passed a budget of 4.3 trillion, it means that you need about 15 or 12 years of Nigeria's 100% budget to tackle housing. But like I said, it's not a federal government thing, it's a general thing.
So how do we get around, tackling this challenge?
There are 1, 2, 3 ways of getting about it. The very first thing is that I wish I could come across to Nigerians to have a certain change in mentality. I'm one of those that don't believe in the center as the focus of change for this country. I've been here long enough. I'm 51 years this year. I've lived in Nigeria 99.9% of my time. I've been involved in the system, and I will tell you that the revolutions that have come in Nigeria never came from the top, and the leaders need to know that. The biggest global revolutions in Nigeria are Nollywood, that Hollywood is struggling to stay on top of. Bollywood is number one. Nollywood is struggling to be number two. Hollywood is struggling to be number two. Nollywood is making such a major global impact. There was no government intervention, no government funds, no government policy, nothing. Nigerians took it up. Again, I cannot forget easily one song. I went to a disco party. I requested for African sound. The whole people started laughing. That's Okoro Jr. Some years back. Imagine, it was like he went for a party. He wanted African sound. People started calling him Okoro Jr. Started laughing at him. Today, I've been to US 8 times this year. Go to any club in US, they are jamming African sounds. It's a global phenomenon, a global hit. Two-Face Idibia is known all over Africa. Globally, is getting recognition. The D'banj, all this, the Wizkids, that's a global phenomenon, revolution. Yeah, we need to bring it in. You look at comedy. You look at the dress you are wearing that I'm wearing. Do you understand me? Everybody's getting comfortable in African dress. It had no government policy, nothing. When you come into housing, the first thing that we need to do is to sit down and understand the dynamics of housing delivery. Number one, how many people know that they invest over 50% of their earnings in housing? How many people sit down and think about it? A staff in my office who is earning less than 100,000 is paying 450,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. How do you extrapolate that? 450,000. You are earning less than 100,000.
A month or a year?
A year, which is
less than 100,000 a year.
Yes, a staff in my office.
How does it? That's less than.
Sorry, a month.
A month.
Yes. That comes 1.2 million, and you are paying 450,000.
So that's close to 45%.
45% on housing. There is nobody living in Ikeja, living in the mainland, that's paying for a 2-bedroom, which is not enough for a family, that is paying less than $1 million or 450 or 500. In fact, you can't even talk about 500,000. What is that? Maybe BQ somewhere. So first thing is for Nigerians to know that this is serious. This is serious.
Okay, now
when you know, number one, that this is serious, number two, you get to understand the delivery dynamics of housing. You must buy land, number one. Number two, you must pay for the cost of the construction. Number three, you must think in terms of the profit of the man doing it. Let me look at these 3 simple factors. Now, in every policy, the people must make certain demands, and government will respond to the demands of the people, because government toes lines of least resistance. The housing estates that we are building generally, where do those developers get the lands from? They buy it second hand, third hand, fourth hand. So the cost of land alone goes this high. Should it be so? No. Who will make that change? The people, not government.
How?
I'll tell you. Governments react to lines of least resistance. In the housing policy that has just been approved after 22 years, and I give the credit to this administration before then, in giving the history, it says that in Lagos and in Port Harcourt, that on account of the independence and the pressure that came to bear on the cities, that the cries of the people woke up government. It's there in the housing policy. The cries of the people woke, W-O-K-E, it's in the housing policy, woke up government. government.
So do the people need to cry before government will wake up?
Because you must understand first how government operates. I have 10 pieces of orange in my hands. I have 200 people lined outside. We really must understand the dynamics of government and the pressures. So the question is, who do I give? I look at you, he's a gentleman, he will not give me problems. I'm like, one of the people told me in Atta's administration, the secretary of PDP, he said my name was crossed out 17 times. 17 times. Because each time they say, let's appoint him to do this. They say, Udosoro has not been appointed. Oh, he is very troublesome. Nya-Etok is a nice guy. So they cross my name, put Udosoro, take my name to another place. Okay? And they realize, Bedram, if you don't put him, he will kill also. Blah, blah. Nya-Etok is a nice guy. They cross Nya-Etok. So government has that pressure. There are too many people that need the very little he has. So the people must find an organized way. Do you understand me? And it starts from enlightenment, like what you're doing now. You don't need to carry placard. It is who allocates land. Look at the workers, Nigerian workers, for instance. Who allocates lands that they work on? Commissioner. Who does the commissioner work with? PAMSEC. The PAMSEC in charge of the directors. When did the directors come together to formulate a policy on housing and come together, the PAMSEC for housing and the PAMSEC for lands? Do you understand me? Having had a document from their directors, two of them come together and meet the two commissioners and say, please, let's take this memo to council for government to give this land, service it so that cost of land is removed, cost of infrastructure is removed. We're only looking at developers' cost and possibly profit, so that the houses delivered to the workers will come lower. Okay. Which state have you heard have done that, and what's so difficult in that?
I'm glad you mentioned state. Let's look at the key issues for a lot of Nigerians. Let's start from the area of land acquisition. Yes. If you buy a land, you have the issue of some families or some group of people claiming, oh,